Hi, everybody. Welcome to 周正 Show.
Do we fight?
Not often.
Not often, okay. We both are very independent thinkers, okay. So, but how we get to the final decision, we have our own way, but the end result is almost very identical. That's why, when he's out there, I don't get concerned. Like, what is he going to be saying out there? That I don't know what he's going to be doing. It's the same way for him to me. Okay, so that's why we work very well together as a team. We don't get tired of each other because we don't argue. We don't spend time arguing. Most of the time, some of the time maybe, So I think, yeah.
Because you always you never complain each other because
of this, okay? Because when we first met, I told Bob, I said, Bob, there's a saying in Chinese called 怕老婆是大丈夫. Okay, but that's a very difficult concept to translate. I can't really translate literally, right? So I told Bob, I say, Bob, we have a saying, you listen to your wife, you go far in life, right? And he always thought that I made it up, right? So whenever I said that, he says, Mei Mei, you listen to your man, that's always the best plan. Because he thought I made it up. Until one day we went to a grand opening.
I did make that up, incidentally, I said.
Yeah. So the chairman got up on the stage and, started talking. And he talked about 怕老婆是大丈夫 because he delivered his speech in English. So of course it was translated. It's not like mine. You listen to your wife, you go far in life. But he said something. Bob understood exactly what he was trying to say. So he looked at me and says, "I guess you didn't make it up." I said, "Why would I make it up?" I said, "It's a true saying that we have. You listen to your wife, you go far in life," which is a very similar concept that we have in the U.S. Happy wife, happy life, right?
So I'm happy she's happy, independent of me, right?
Okay, good. Then public, you always really match each other. You really on the same page and on same umbrella. I want to ask you a question. There is a 1882. Their Chinese get unfair to be treated by the, all the Congress, right. All the American. I want to know you still fight for this.
Well, I can tell you what happened here. So there's the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, and that was in California. It was led by California. It was a U.S. Effort by Congress. But in California, you had a lot of Chinese brought over to work the gold mines. You also had them come over to build the railroads. Well, in the latter 1870s, they were now about 10% of the state's population. And so the people that were working were afraid all the Chinese were going to come over and take their jobs. Now that they had what they had done, they were worried about that. So they lobbied Congress to create the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882. Back then, Chinese represented anybody that was Asian, right? Later on, they differentiated it. So there was basically a statement of regret that the state of California did that was led by another legislator, but some of my Chinese friends and constituents said, hey, how come everybody else gets an apology and all we get is a statement of regret? That's like discrimination in itself. And so Mamie and I work in the community decided, well, I will carry legislation to issue a formal apology, which we did. And at the end of the day, we ended up doing that as well as calling on Congress because they're the ones that can reverse the policy. They did a statement of regret as well, so we were asking them to do an apology. So that part's still ongoing. They have not done that. They had decided since they did the statement of regret, they didn't really want to be doing a lot of resolutions. Speaker Boehner sort of came up with that policy. And so we have not been able to get that enacted by Congress, but that is our hope that someday we will.
The state of California did pass the resolution to issue formal apology to the Chinese community already. That was back in June 7th of 2014, if I remember.
2014.
2014.
It did apologize already.
Yes, the state of California has apologized formally to the Chinese community already. Okay, but Senator Huff also passed another bill called SJR 23, which is to call on Congress to issue resolution to formally apologize to the Chinese community. So we are still working on that. The Congress has issued apology to every other ethnic groups except for Chinese. 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act is the largest legislation, law that legally people can discriminate against Chinese.
Yeah.
But they have not issued an apology. Expression of regrets is not apology. Okay, but that's what passed out of the Congress in 2012. So what we are looking right now is asking the Congress to recognize what they did in the past on 1882 Chinese Exclusion Act was absolutely wrong, and they need to stand up and say they recognize it was a mistake, and they need to apologize formally to the Chinese community.
What's wrong with this idea? Collecting racial data, like the federal government does with the census every 10 years, can and has been used in the past to hurt Asian Americans.
Wow, it's a big issue. So, Mr. Bobahav, I want to ask you, have you been to China?
Oh, numerous times. I lose track.
Many times?
I believe the number is 18 times or so.
18 times. What do you think of China? What do you think of the Chinese people?
I find China fascinating because it's a country that's evolving, right? It's like watching history being made. Every time I go to China, I find something different because it's such a vast, populous, but developing country, right? So I'm fascinated with the culture. In California, we go back a couple hundred years, and that's about it. United States, similar. Well, you can go back to 1600s, but that's only, 400, 500 years. So it's in China, you have a culture that goes back millennia. So that in itself is interesting. But I just find the potential of the Chinese, and of course I'm dealing mostly with the ones that come and settle here and the different issues that an immigrant community has. And so it's just fascinating, and I'm very pleased to be a part of that whole process of understanding better China by going there, but also helping assimilate here in California with different values, different system of government, and all of that.
What do you comment of all the minority, the culture, and the American culture?
Well, I think the value I had growing up in a small town, first of all, first 10 years of my life, I was literally on a farm 10 miles from the nearest community, the one I went to school in. Our nearest neighbor was a Japanese farming family. But in our school, everybody went to the same school. It wasn't, I was going to school in the 50s and 60s and 70s, right? But back then we had the Equal Rights Amendment, we had integration, civil rights, we had all these things going on socially, but in our little community of Imperial, everybody went to the same school. Everybody was treated the same as others. You differentiated yourself academically, not by race, right? So those are values that sort of followed me. If I look at you, I don't think of you as Chinese. I see you as a person with a certain skill set. My best friend was blind. It was a similar kind of thing. I never thought of him as being blind. He was the smartest guy in our class. It was just he had different ways of navigating life. So those are values that you learn at an early age, and they stay with you. But I think one of the biggest things I learned, which helps me not just with the culturally diverse community, but it's more or less a way of life, in that my parents were involved in the community. That led me by example to be involved in the community. The dad was on a school board. Mom was superintendent of the Sunday school teachers in our church. Dad later served on the deacon board. But through all this, we learned to give back, and Dad would take us camping as kids, and he would always say, leave the campground in better shape than you find it. And that was sort of values we take through life. We want to leave the world. We want to leave California. I wanted to leave the 29th district that I represented in better shape than when I found it.
Okay. I heard in the California, here even in Los Angeles, there is a 250 culture.
Well, I think each culture has its own strong points. So we are here in the U.S., and we bring with us, our culture, our customs, our traditions, and all, everything. But I think in order to become successful in the U.S., we have to find ways to assimilate into the culture here. But at the same time, first generation immigrants will always remember and bring with them, what they came here with. So it's a matter of how we melt them together. We have always heard that the U.S. is the largest melting pot in the world. So, different cultures and, different people, different ethnic groups come into U.S., same thing as California. So I think Chinese culture has a lot of its very, very strong and good points. And we try to keep them here. And that's the reason why Senator Huff spent 5 years trying to help the Chinese after-school program, 中文课后辅导学校, because he knows it is very important to immigrant families, first-generation immigrants, to try to keep their culture and also learn the culture and the language and whatever we have here. So it is always a challenge, but that's why Bob and I, we are a very good and strong team, because while there are a lot of people out there doing maybe what Bob is doing, I shouldn't say a lot because it's a very specialized field. Only so many people can ever become a legislator at a state level or higher, and even much less people will ever be able to become the leader of a party as an elected official. That does not come by very often. So we try our best, but we are in a much better position than many of the people providing the similar service in that we understand other cultures, especially the Asian Chinese culture, because Senator Huff has been under influence from me, for instance, in our community and the trips that he's taken to other parts of the world, Asia and China. So he has a much better global vision and view that he applies to his job. So I think we're very unique in that way. And we have always trying to bridge the gaps, culturally, politically, what have you. So we recognize the contributions that the Asian community, especially the Chinese community, has done or given to our state or even to the U.S.
坐落于转18的老成都川菜馆是由四川特级名厨和专业管理团队打造的餐饮品牌企业。自开业以来，其正宗地道的川菜佳肴受到了众多消费者的一致好评。无论是本地食客，还是远道而来的中外客人，都为品尝到正宗美味的川菜而津津乐道、流连忘返。老成都川菜馆现承接公司、教会、社团、学校、社区及家庭各类发达的订餐服务，近期将开展预订优惠的订餐活动。详情请咨询909-367-2829或来电洽谈1220 South Diamond Bar Boulevard, Suite D, Diamond Bar, California 91765.
This bill, the unintended consequence is it actually allows our public schools to use race and gender and others to discriminate against students. Is that really where we want to go?
Well,
and you do a lot of the job in the society, like you are a leader. How you jog all the time to... I know you are busy.
She never sleeps.
Well, that I don't know about that, but Bob used to say to me, Mimi, do not call people after 9 o'clock. But he sees me, on the phone at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, says, don't worry, I'm talking to Chinese. Chinese never sleeps. Right. So I think, I'm a very focused person. Bob can tell you that, and I prioritize my schedule because I do have a lot of things I need to get to. So certain things have to go, so I stopped playing golf, I stopped dancing, and, I gave everything up to focus on helping people in our community politically, because that's really an area that people, I would say Asian, Chinese do not pay attention to, but that's the area that really impact us the most. So I spend a lot of time there. If we have any other time left, we focus on on charity work. That's really takes up all of our time. We have no other time, but we will always make time to take the kids to the movie theater, go out to a dinner. Friday night was our family evening, and when before Bob became very, very busy, he used to take the kids to...
The kids were younger.
Yeah, younger. Camping, fishing, riding motorcycles, for instance. So that's what we do. But you're right. We are very, very busy, and we can only do things very selectively. But the main goal is to try to help people in our community. I was sharing this concept with a friend of mine yesterday at lunchtime. We see a lot of posting on Facebook or WeChat that talk about pay it forward, right? People will go into, for instance, a coffee shop. They will buy a cup of coffee and leave some money behind. So other people who don't have the means to buy a cup of coffee can enjoy a cup of coffee. It's called pay it forward, okay, that concept. But people don't seem to understand the biggest pay it forward spirit is in politics. All people who volunteer their time to help their community based on their belief, they exhibit the highest spirit of pay it forward. When I put on fundraising event for Senator Huff, a lot of Chinese people will come and donate money. They donated to his campaign. They may never personally benefit from helping Bob to get into office. But when Bob legislates, okay, when he passes legislation, that will impact a lot of people in our community. So we have good legislators, such as Senator Huff. A lot of people will benefit. Now that is the highest pay-it-forward concept spirit that anybody can see. But in our community, it's not something that, because people come from Asia, they are not exposed to, participating in the political system, in 一个法治的社会. They don't understand the importance. So we largely marginalized ourselves in the U.S. because we don't know how it's done, how it's played, and we don't participate. So that's why I spend a lot of my time in that arena for no compensation at all. We never really focus on building a business for us. We really literally spend most of our time doing work that's no pay, non-pay. So Bob was right. I was the highest non-pay volunteer, not just for his office, but for many candidates. We're grooming and helping good people to get into positions so they can do work and help our community. I spend time on helping our party. So that's all non-pay. So our focus has never been on making money. But right now, I'm helping Senator Huff build a new business. So that will change a little bit. But we will never forget helping other people is really a priority for us.
又到了1年1度的这个感恩节，感恩节跟我们的中国人的中秋节有点类似啊，是个1年之中我们跟一家人团聚的一个时间。
That's the business I told you that I'm helping Senator Huff to build. It's called Huff Strategies. Okay, Huff Strategies is like a consulting firm. The concept of consulting to a lot of Asians, including Chinese, is relatively unimportant. I should say that, okay, people, but like I say, we need to understand how things work in the U.S., okay? So what we can provide, what Senator Huff can provide, may not be what the attorney can solve the problem. CPA like myself cannot solve. There are a lot of areas that are very specialized. That's where Senator Huff and his background and our network will come in to help solve problems for our community. It can be any area. It can be in education. It can be infrastructure, transportation, water, agricultural, high tech, anything that people may not be able to solve on their own. We may have the tools and the network and the understanding and the knowledge to help solve the problem. So to sum it up, okay, is not just public policies, which is 立法 legislation, not just government, 各级政府, any level of government, and
What's the name of that? What's
Huff
the name?
Strategies.
Huff Strategy.
哈佛智库.
哈佛智库.
And it's
Okay.
not just political operation, because anything you do cannot escape political operation. Even in terms of legislation, you always have to work it to have the result come out the way that will benefit your member, your group, your community, and the construction.
How do you the website?
www.huffstrategies.com.
Or www.halfthestrategist.com. 哈佛智库啊，中文叫哈佛智库。OK, thank you for coming, 周正修。Everybody, thank you watching 周正修。See you next time.